Sai Ram, Sai Satcharitra, chapter 2. In chapter 2, author describes about object of writing the work, incapacity and boldness in the undertaking, and our discussion and conferring significant and prophetic title of Hemat Pan and the necessity of a guru. Now the author Hemat Pan explains about the objective of writing the work. In the first chapter, I described Sai Baba's miracle of checking and destroying the epidemic of cholera by grinding wheat and throwing the flour on the outskirts of the village. I heard other miracles of Sai Baba to my great delight, and this delight burst forth into this poetic work. I also thought that the description of these grand miracles of Sai Baba would be interesting and instructive to his devotees and would remove their sins, and so I began to write the scarred life and teaching of Sai Baba. The life of the saint is neither logical nor dialectical, it shows us the true and great path. Author's incapacity and boldness in undertaking the work. Hemant Pan thought that he was not a fit person to undertake the work. He said, I do not know the life of my intimate friend, nor do I know my own mind. Then how can I write the life of a saint or describe the nature of incarnations, which even the Vedas were unable to do? One must be a saint himself before he could know other saints. Then how can I describe their glory? To write the life of a saint is the most difficult, though one may as well measure the depth of a water of the seven seas or enclose the sky with cloth trappings. I knew that this was the most venturous undertaking which might expose me to ridicule. I therefore invoked Sai Baba's grace. The premier poet saint of Maharashtra, Sri Jnaneshwar Maharaj, has stated that the Lord loves those who write the lives of saints, and the saints also have a peculiar method of their own of getting the service which the devotees long for, successfully accomplished. Sai Baba's wonderful Leelas are also described in a small decent book named Sri Sainath Bhajanamala by Mrs. Savitri by Raghunath Tendulkar of Bandra. Das Danu Maharaj also has composed various sweet poems on Sai Baba. A devotee named Amidas Bhavani Mehta has also published some stories of Sai Baba in Gujarati. Some number of Sainath Prabha, a magazine published by Dakshina Bhiksha Sanstha of Shirdi, are also published. Then the question of objection comes in that while so many works regarding Sai Baba are extant, why should this Sachrita be written? And where is its necessity? The answer is plain and simple. The life of Sai Baba is as wide and deep as infinite ocean, and all can dive deep into the same and take out precious gems of knowledge and bhakti and distribute them to aspiring public. The stories, parables, and teachings of Sai Baba are very wonderful. They will give peace and happiness to the people who are afflicted with sorrows and heavily loaded with miseries of this worldly existence, and also bestow knowledge and wisdom both in the worldly and in spiritual domains. If these teachings of Sai Baba, which are as interesting and instructive as the Vedic lore, are listened to and meditated upon, the devotees will get what they long for. I thought that I should call these stories together, that would be my best upasana. This collection would be most delightful to those simple souls whose eyes were not blessed with Sai Baba's darshana. So I set about collecting Sai Baba's teaching and expressions, the outcome of his boundless and natural self realization. It was Sai Baba who inspired me in this matter. In fact, I surrendered my ego at his feet and thought that my path was clear and that he would make me quite happy here and in the next world. I could not myself ask Sai Baba to give me permission for this work. So I requested Mr. Madhav Rao Deshpan alias Sharma, Baba's most intimate devotee, to speak to him for me. He pleaded for my cause and said to Sai Baba, "This Anna Sahib wishes to write your biography. Don't say that you are a poor begging fakir and there is no necessity to write it. But if you agree and help him, he will write, or rather, your feet will accomplish the work. Without your consent and blessing, nothing can be done successfully." When Sai Baba heard this request, he was moved and blessed me by giving me his sudhi, and placing his boon bestowing hand on my head, said, "Let him make a collection of stories and experiences, keep notes and memos. I will help him. He is only an outward instrument. I should write myself my autobiography and satisfy the wishes of my devotees. He should get rid of his egos, place it at my feet. He who acts like this in life, I will help the most. What of my life stories? I've served him in his house in all possible ways. When this ego is completely annihilated and there is left no trace of it, I myself shall enter into him and shall write myself my own life. Hearing my stories and teachings will create faith in devotees' hearts and they will easily get self realization and bliss. Let there be no insistence on establishing one's own view, no attempt to refute others' opinion, no discussion of pros and cons of any subject. The word discussion put me in mind of my promise to explain the story of my getting the title of Ahmed Pan, and now I begin to relate the same. I was on close friendly terms with Kaka Sahib Dikshit and Nana Sahib Chandokar. They pressed me to go to Shirdi and have Sai Baba's darshana, and I promised them to do so. But something in the interval turned up which prevented me from going to Shirdi. The son of my friend of mine at Lonavala fell ill. My friend tried all possible means, physical and spiritual, but the fever would not abate. At length, he got his guru to sit by the bedside of his son, but this too was of no avail. Hearing this, I thought, what was the utility of the guru if he could not save my friend's son? If the guru can't do anything for us, why should I go to Shirdi at all? Thinking in this way, I postponed my Shirdi trip, but the inevitable must happen, and it happened in my case as follows. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandokar, who was the parent officer, was going on tour to Besain. From Thane, he came to Dadar and was waiting for a local bound for Besain. In the meanwhile, a Bandra local turned up. He sat in it and came to Bandra and sent for me and took me to task for putting off my Shirdi trip. Nana's argument for my Shirdi trip was convincing and delightful, and so I decided to start for Shirdi the same night. I packed up my luggages and started for Shirdi. I planned to go to Dadar and there to catch the train for Manmad. And so I booked myself for Dadar and sat in the train. While the train was to start, a Mohammedan came hastily to my compartment and seeing all my paraphernalia asked me where I was bound. I told him my plan. Then he suggested that I should go straight to Boribandar and not to get down at Dadar, for the Manmad mail did not get down at Dadar at all. If this little miracle or Leela had not happened, I would not have reached Shirdi next day as settled. and many doubts would have assailed me, but that was not to be. As fortune favored me, I reached Shirdi the next day before 9 or 10 a.m. Mr. Bhau Sahib Dikshit was waiting for me there. This was in 1910 AD when there was only one place, namely Satiswada, for lodging pilgrim devotees. After alighting from the Tonga, I was anxious to have darshana. When the great devotee Tatya Sahib Nulkar returned from Masjid and said that Sai Baba was at the corner of the Wada and that I should first get the preliminary darshana and then after bath see him at leisure. Hearing this, I ran and prostrated before Baba, and then my joy knew no bounds. I found more than what Nana Chandokar had told me. All my senses were satisfied and I forgot thirst and hunger. The moment I touched Sai Baba's feet, I began a new lease of life. I felt myself much obliged to those who spurred and helped me to get the darshana, and I consider them as my real relatives, and I can't repay their debt. I only remember them and prostrate before them. The peculiarity of Sai Baba's Dashna, as I found it, is that by his Dashna or thoughts are changed. The force of previous action is abated, and gradually non attachment of dispassion towards worldly objects grows up. It is by the merit of action in many past births that such dashna is got. And if only you see Sai Baba really, all the world becomes or assumes the form of Sai Baba. Now the author says about the hot discussion happened in Shirdi. On the first day of my arrival in Shirdi, there was a discussion between me and Bala Sahib Bate regarding the necessity of a guru. I contended, why should we lose our freedom and submit to others? When we have to do our duty, why a guru is necessary? One must try his best and save himself. What can the guru do to a man who does nothing but sleeps indolently? Thus I pleaded free will, while Mr. Bhati took up the other side, destiny, and said, whatever is bound to happen must happen. Even great men have failed. Man proposes one way, but God disposes the other way. Brush aside your cleverness. Pride or egoism won't help you. This discussion, with all its pros and cons, went on for an hour or so, and as usual, no decision was arrived at. We had to stop the discussion ultimately as we were exhausted. The result of this was that I lost my peace of mind and found that unless there is strong body consciousness and egoism, there would be no discussion. In other words, it is egoism which breeds discussion. Then, when we went to masjid with others, Baba asked Kaka Sahib Dikshit the following: what was going on in the Satiswada? What was the discussion about? And staring at me, Baba further added, what did this impan say? Hearing these words, I was much surprised. The masjid was at considerable distance from Satiswada, where I was staying, and where the discussion was going on. How could Baba know a discussion unless he be omniscient and inner ruler of us all? Significant and prophetic title. I began to think why Sai Baba should call me by my name Hemad Pant. This word is a corrupt form of Ahmadri Pant. This Ahmadri Pant was a well known minister of the King Mahadev and Ramadev of Devgiri of the Yadav dynasty. He was a very learned, good natured, and the author of good works such as Chatruvarga, Chintamani, and Rajprasthi. He invented and started new methods of accounts and was the originator of the Modi script, that means Marathi shorthand. But I was quite the opposite and ignoramus and have dull mediocre intellect. So I could not understand why the name or title was conferred upon me. But thinking seriously upon it, I thought that the title was a dare to destroy my ego, so that I should always remain meek and humble. It was also a compliment paid to me for the cleverness in the discussion. Looking to the future history, we think that Baba's word was significant and prophetic, as we find that he looked after the management of Sai Sansthan very intelligently, kept nicely all accounts, and was also the author of such a good work, Sai Satcharitra, which deals with such important and spiritual subjects as jnana, bhakti, and dispassion, self surrender, and self realization. About the necessity of a guru, Hemant Pant has left no note, no memo about what Baba said regarding this subject, but Kaka Sahib Ji Dikshit has published his notes regarding this matter. Next day, after Hempant's meeting with Sai Baba, Kaka Sahib went to Baba and asked whether he should leave Shirdi. Baba said, yes. Then someone asked Baba where to go. Baba said, high up. Then the man said, how is the way? Baba said, there are many ways leading there. There is one way also from here. The way is difficult. There are tigers and wolves in the jungles on the way. I Kaka Sahib asked, but Baba, what if we take a guide with us? Baba answered, then there is no difficulty. The guide will take you straight to your destination, avoiding wolves, tigers, and ditches, etc. on the way. If there be no guide, there is the danger of your being lost in the jungle or falling into ditches. Mr. Dabholkar was present on this occasion and he thought that this was the answer of Baba gave to the question whether Guru was a necessity. And he thereupon took the hint that no discussion of the problem, whether man is free or bound, is of any use in spiritual matters, but on the contrary, Paramatma is possible only as the result of the teachings of the Guru, as is illustrated in this chapter of the original work in the instance of great avatars like Rama and Krishna who had to submit themselves to their gurus, Vasistha and Sandipani respectively, for getting self realization, and that the only virtues necessary for such progress are faith and patience. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace to be all. Om Sai, Sri Sai, Jai Jai Sai.